Welcome to the journey through history, where our footsteps are brought back to life. Let's begin.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are exploring something that is just pure history, pure passion. We're talking about the tango.
We are. And it's so much more than just music or a dance, isn't it? It's really a living document of a culture.
Absolutely. Our mission today is to trace its incredible journey.
Yeah, we want to look at how this genre, which was forged in the shadows of the Rio de la Plata, went from being totally prohibited to, well, a world treasure.
And we've got some amazing sources that detail all of it. The struggle, the nostalgia, this constant evolution. But I think the real paradox for us to get into is how something so fiercely local became so universally loved. So to really understand this, we have to set the scene. Let's go back to the late 19th century. Paint a picture for us of Buenos Aires and Montevideo.
They were absolute pressure cookers. I mean, just exploding. These cities were expanding so fast because of these massive, unrelenting waves of immigration.
And we're not just talking about Europeans coming over.
No, not at all. It was this really complex cultural layering. You had, of course, the Italians and the Spaniards, people from the Middle East and Eastern Europe.
Right.
But, and this is critical,
Right.
you also had the people who were already there. You had the criollos, the native-born locals, and you had displaced gauchos.
The Argentine cowboys forced into the cities.
Exactly. Forced off the plains and right into this urban struggle.
So you have all these groups, most of them rootless, all kind of desperate, just crammed together.
Crammed into these places called conventillos. You have to picture these huge, shared courtyard housing complexes. They weren't just apartments.
No, they were forced communities.
Forced communities. They shared kitchens, bathrooms, patios. And that meant they shared everything else. Their music, their frustrations, their search for an identity. That clash right there in those crowded patios, that was the germ of the tango.
Okay, so that melting pot provides the raw ingredients, the tension. But how did that feeling, that conflict, turn into actual music?
Well, the first thing you have to remember is that there was no single inventor. No one sat down and said, I'm going to create tango.
It was organic.
Completely. It was this spontaneous mix that grew out of those low-income neighborhoods, the barrios bajos. And the sources show this amazing collision of global rhythms on local soil.
So what was in the recipe for this early tango criollo? What were the key musical ingredients?
You had the driving rhythm of the Afro-candombe. You had the kind of sensual sway of the Cuban habanera that you throw in popular European dances, polkas, mazurkas, and you mix all of that with the local criollo melodies. It was a rustic sound at first, but it was already so expressive.
And the lyrics, they immediately tapped into this really deep emotional core, didn't they? This feeling of being far from home, this desahogo, as they called it, rootlessness.
That is the key. That's everything. This music was the soundtrack for a generation that had no anchor. The early songs, they're all about abandonment, poverty, lost love, and this deep, aching nostalgia for a home you just couldn't get back to.
It gave their sorrow a voice.
It gave it dignity, a voice they could hear in the sketchy cafes and out on those crowded conventillo patios.
Which brings us to the dance, because this is where tango goes from being, sad music to a full-blown social scandal. Why did that closed embrace, that physical closeness, cause such an outrage among the respectable elite?
It was just so transgressive, the improvisation, the bodies pressed so close together. It shattered all the Victorian social rules of the time. For the upper classes, it just confirmed where the dance came from, the brothels, the margins of society.
But if you flip that, if you look at it from the other side, that exact same embrace meant something totally different to the people dancing.
Oh, absolutely. It was communication. For people who were isolated and struggling in this harsh new city, that closeness was empathy. It was a refuge, a moment where they could just share this vulnerability.
Okay, now for the instrument. The great sonic pivot, we have to talk about the bandoneon, the sound that is tango.
The soul of tango.
So, get this. This instrument, the very essence of worldly urban passion, was designed to be a portable church organ.
That's the ultimate irony, isn't it? It was invented in Germany, a religious instrument, a portable hymnal.
But it was only when it traveled to the Rio de la Plata that it found its real voice.
It was in Buenos Aires and Montevideo that the bandoneon's unique sound, that sort of breathy, intensely melancholic voice, was truly discovered. It became the instrument that could literally cry the sorrows of a generation.
And that sound starts to get more formal around the turn of the century. This period is known as the Guardia Vieja. We're talking roughly 1900 to 1920.
Right, so tango starts to move out of those prohibited corners and into more popular cafes and venues. The first orquestas típicas start to form.
Standardizing the lineup. Guitar, violin, flute, and of course the bandoneon.
And you get figures like Angel Redondo actually publishing the music. But the real turning point, the moment it got validated, was when it went to Paris.
That was the moment it crossed the ocean. And here's that massive paradox again. The very thing that was seen as vulgar, back-home música de arrabal, music of the slums, it suddenly becomes this fascinating fashion in Europe.
The Parisian elite loved it. They were bored with their own culture, and they saw this raw, elegant, slightly dangerous rhythm, and they just embraced it completely.
And that stamp of approval from Europe changed everything.
Everything. When tango came back home, consecrated by Paris, the local porteña elite in Buenos Aires, well, they couldn't dismiss it anymore. It was transformed almost overnight into an Argentine cultural symbol.
And this all happens right as the tango canción, the tango-song, is born around the 1910s, which leads us to a legend.
Carlos Gardel.
What did he bring to it?
Gardel added a layer of high art. He took that raw emotion and he refined it. His voice, his ability to transmit this profound, dignified sorrow. He made tango into poetry for the whole world to hear.
Yeah.
And that acceptance really kicks off the golden age of tango, which runs from about 1930 to 1955. This is when the music just hits its peak of technical refinement. The great orchestras became these huge cultural forces.
And you can't just lump them all together. It's the contrast between them that's so fascinating. You have someone like Juan D'Arienzo, El Rey del Compás.
The king of rhythm. D'Arienzo kept it really close to its street roots.
Yeah.
A driving, almost aggressive beat. It was music made for dancers.
But then on the other end, you have Carlos Di Sarli.
Di Sarli, who wraps that same music in this incredible softness and elegance. He brought a sophistication to it, a polish.
And then there's the emotional depth. People like Osvaldo Pugliese, who took it to these complex, almost symphonic levels.
And Annibal Troilo, who made the bandoneon, tell these heartbreakingly tender stories. It just shows that tango is so much more than music.
It's a philosophy.
It really is. It's urban poetry. It speaks about time, about memory, about mistakes, about finding some kind of dignity in just surviving.
But like any great art form, it eventually faced a crisis. The 60s and 70s roll around, rock music takes over, and tango starts to seem old.
It seemed to lose its connection with the youth, but it didn't die. It regenerated. And that transformation is really personified by one man, Astor Piazzolla.
The great revolutionary.
He took the whole structure of tango and he fused it with jazz and with classical music. He created the Nuevo Tango. At first, it was incredibly controversial.
You can't dance to it.
Exactly. Too intellectual, not for the dance hall. But now, of course, it's admired globally for its sheer complexity and beauty.
And thanks to that legacy, tango is everywhere today. You have milongas, the dance halls flourishing in Buenos Aires, sure, but also in Tokyo, in Berlin, Istanbul.
Which was all formally recognized in 2009 when UNESCO declared tango an intangible cultural heritage of humanity, acknowledging it as this crucial bridge between cultures and generations.
What an incredible journey. It just shows that tango is. It's about roots, it's about resistance, and it's this incredibly complex emotional embrace. A real testament to culture being forged in conflict.
It really is. So, to leave you with a final thought, building on that idea of tango as a philosophy, if it's truly about finding beauty and sadness and dignity in urban survival, what modern urban experience holds that same philosophical weight today?
That is a compelling question to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into history and rhythm.
We really appreciate you sharing your time with us. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time.